welcome to the TruGolf Academy. You've joined me, Jon Watts, today in my swing studio at Drayton Park Golf Club. I want to do a video today on the role of the trail elbow in the backswing and the downswing and the effect that has on the club shaft position. Make sure you stay tuned for more information.
Before we get started, guys, all the info you need for the social media is coming along the bottom of the screen right now. So if you don't already, please do check us out on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Also, our website address is coming along the bottom of the screen right now. So today's video, as I mentioned, talking about the trail elbow in the backswing and the downswing and the effect that has on the club shaft angle. So whether the shaft is coming down on plane or too steep, or possibly too shallow. So let's get into talking about the trail elbow. So for me, my right elbow in the backswing. What I'm really looking for, the key fundamental, is that at the top of the backswing, the right elbow is pointing down. And we want to try and get my forearm, my elbow, if I followed this line down, pointing just behind, as close as I can, to my trail heel. That does depend on how much flexibility we've got in here in our right rotator cuff. And I'm just going to dive in a second into an exercise or a way of testing how much flexibility you've got in there and how you can try and increase that rotation. But we're trying to allow this right elbow to fold in towards our right hip, and at the top of the backswing we're trying to get it pointing down. If you are very flexible here, you'll be able to get the right elbow in this position while you're tilted over. You can see that as I tilt over, my actual arm tends to marry up to my spine angle. But depending on how much rotation, how much flexibility we've got in here, the closer we can get to this vertical position, the better, really. Now, I don't mind whether the right elbow starts to fold very early in the backswing or a little bit later in the backswing, as long as by the time we get to the top of the backswing we've got that desired position we're really looking for. So if someone's trying to make a wider takeaway position, you'll start to see that this trail elbow is folding that little bit later. So let's go from more of a pure face-on position. So wider swing here would mean the elbow starts to fold down a little bit later, whereas you'll see with some people there's a slightly earlier wrist set in the backswing, and that right elbow, that trail elbow, for a right-handed golfer, my right elbow is going to be folding downwards here. The biggest fault we tend to see is when the right arm, the trail elbow, starts to actually move upwards away from that right hip, away from that trail side, this way, and when that happens, we tend to get a very steep club shaft in the backswing. Normally a very closed club face position when it happens as well, when that elbow gets too extreme. By the time we get to the top of the backswing, we get what we call a chicken wing with that trail elbow, and that often gives us a shaft where it's pointing more cross-lined. So for me as a right-handed golfer, more to the right of my target. If the swing is less than full, so we're not quite getting that club shaft parallel to the ground. And I think when you look at most modern players, the synchronization they've got of matching their arms to their body means that most of them with a mid-iron, like I've got in my hands here, a 7-iron, they're getting it shorter parallel, that we're actually getting the club shaft pointing a little bit more behind us, okay, so more to the left or right-handed player in this fashion here. But again, you can see this right elbow really sitting downwards, not flaring out where we'd get a very vertical club shaft. So while I'm on that subject of the backswing, and this right arm, this right rotator cuff affecting it, quite a good exercise, and I realise I'm going to dart a little bit out of shot. I'll show you a slightly closer up view as well on the video. It's just to get a small ball, a tennis ball or something similar, and you're just going to put it behind your lower back, and you're actually going to go against the wall. And what I want to try and do is actually push so that ball is pushing against the wall, so my lower back, my pelvis isn't coming off the wall here. And I want to try and get my shoulder blades back onto the wall as well, the back of my head, and you will end up with a double or triple chin here. You're trying to actually push your chin back as well. So I'm against the wall, and I'm trying to get my elbows on my wrists as far back as possible towards the wall. So I'm trying to, if you've got very poor flexibility in this right rotator cuff, when you're in this position, your arms will be over here. And when you try and force them backwards, what you'll find is your lower back comes off and you drop the ball. So we're going to be pushing back with our lower back, shoulder blades, back ahead, and you're trying to get your elbows and your wrists as close to the wall as possible. It's that right rotator cuff for a right-handed player, it's that left-right rotator cuff for a left-hand player that's really going to make the change or this effect on what the trail elbow is doing in your backswing. The closer we can get it to be pointing downwards, the better. So I want to then go on to what happens on the downswing. We want to try and maintain that position of the trail elbow as long as possible on the downswing. We want it to stay in external rotation. What we see with a lot of golfers is their right arm starts to go this way on the downswing into more of an internal rotation where the club shaft and the handle is moving forwards towards the ball. You can see the effect that's going to have is a very steep club shaft where my path is very much going to be coming from out to in. So we're trying to keep that angle where that right elbow, that trail elbow, is coming down towards your trail hip. Now, a lot of people will be worried about getting the club stuck behind you. I wouldn't worry. What happens is as this is falling, we're trying to match the club to the ball. We're trying to rotate or pivot better with our lower body and our chest towards the ball, and that's going to have the effect of squaring the club face through impact. So we want this elbow pointing downwards at the top as best we can. And we're trying to maintain that position as we start our downswing here. And it's the rotation of the body, the pivot of the body that will start to square the club face. What we really want to avoid is any time where that elbow is moving out away from you. So what we tend to see is the elbow moves away from you and the club shaft steepens. Occasionally you get some better players who get that, where their elbow moves out away from them, but they actually try and compensate with the wrist angle to allow that club shaft to shallow. And they can hit some better shots from there, but it tends to mean there's a lot of forearm rotation. We can't just match it up with our body. We've actually got to use our hands as well. So we're trying to keep this trail elbow pretty tight towards my trail hip as I start my downswing and match it with some rotation. A great exercise, I've got an impact ball here, but you could just grab a football or sponge. It's nice to have the line on it, the two-tone colours, just because I think it makes it visually a little bit easier. But all you're going to do is slot this between your forearms. You're going to go ahead and make that backswing. You can see that if my elbow wanted to separate and fly up here more like a chicken wing, I'm going to drop the ball. With the two-tone colours, as I said, it makes it a little easier. So halfway back, I'm able to see both colours. From a face-on point of view, you'll just see more the blue. Okay, I'm trying to keep that angle on the downswing. Again, stopping this movement where this trail elbow is starting to move forwards towards the ball in an internal rotation. Really fixing that right elbow is what we want to do. Very much like we were going to skim a stone, getting that right elbow into this position where we can actually start to release. Our trail arm will be reaching straight just after impact. So we're keeping that bend in there all the way to impact. It's actually extending just post-impact. So the roll of that right elbow is really vital. Let me go ahead and just hit a full shot for you. Get that feeling of what the right arm, the right trail elbow is going to be doing in my backswing and my downswing. And I can square the club with my rotation. Let's give it a whirl. Felt pretty solid, good distance. Started just right to target, didn't draw enough, but very happy with the flight. For some reason didn't pick up the HMT data there, but you can actually see very minimal ball flight. Started just right to target, hardly had any movement on there. A 7-iron flying 165, but definitely got that feeling of what that trail elbow was starting to do in my backswing and my downswing. I hope that video has helped. If it has, do subscribe to the channel for all the other content, and give us a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed the content of the video.